I was with a group of people a couple of weeks ago, and before our little session got going, we were discussing about what people had been listening to on the radio as they drove down in their cars to the venue for a couple of days together. One guy had actually been listening to the news and switched to a classic music station, having come to the conclusion that not only was all the news bad, but all the news was bad and zoned in, completely focused on money, the root of all evil. From a psychological point of view, I can actually understand why and how we have psychologically developed to trip ourselves up in our ordinary everyday life on the basis of the fact that we do a lot of the things that we do automatically. That our reactions in our adult lives are largely based on what we learned during our childhood lives. I can understand all that, and a lot of that is discussed on this website and indeed in the online workshops. But it intrigues me, and intrigues me is actually the wrong word. It intrigues me as to why we deliberately, during the course of our ordinary everyday lives, zone in on the negative. Not just in the news sense, not just in the sense of what is going on in the economy, in the financial markets, but in the sense of our own individual lives as well. Very often, as soon as we think we've actually got things going in the right direction, the little voices in our head will start plaguing us again and saying, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. You know, do you honestly think that this good time is going to last? We are so negative as a race of people. I remember, you may cast your mind back to when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans a few years ago. And the mayor of New Orleans at the time, in the first couple of days of that disaster, estimated that the number of people to have died would be in the region of 10,000. A journalistic acquaintance of mine, about a week later, when the final death toll came in at less than 3,000, was on the phone to me, and she actually said, isn't it awful? Isn't it awful what happened in New Orleans? The death toll wasn't half as high as what we thought it was going to be. Think about that for a moment, because as bizarre as it sounds, it actually encapsulates our love of bad news. Now, if you love bad news, if you wallow in bad news, if you don't just read the front of the newspaper in relation to the disasters that are befalling us in the world from an economic point of view, from a natural disaster point of view, but then you actually get down deep and dirty by going into page 2, 3, 4 and 5, where it's all about rape, murder and abuse of one sort or another. If you're that kind of person, then you are simply not just wallowing in the negativity that everybody feeds off, but you are actually confirming to yourself that you're not too bad. Life is okay. Only an idiot would actually believe that not too bad is good enough. Only an idiot would actually say to themselves, well, as one guy said to me a few years back, I'm successful enough already. If you actually think you've arrived at a point in your life where you have all the success that you want out of life, if you actually think that you have arrived in your life at a point where you have nothing more to learn, well then, actually you're probably like most normal adults who, from the age of about 18 years on, learn nothing new at all. And unfortunately, all you have to do is open the newspapers that I mentioned at the beginning of this video to realize just where that has got normal humanity. Now, if you want to be abnormal, one of the simplest and easiest places to start is stop buying your newspaper. Stop listening to the radio news. Stop listening to all the pundits analysing the news and trying to make what is not too bad, not too worse. Stop watching the news. Sure, we have to know what's going on in the world, maybe from a business point of view, maybe from a sport point of view. But generally speaking, the stuff that fills our news bulletins, the stuff that populates news websites, the stuff that fills the columns in newspapers, is all a load of crap. And in wallowing in crap, you're going to ensure that you live out your life in crap. And it'll be your own stupidity.